The sun is brutal from the moment it rises, flushed with anger, and spreads the light of another day into the grove of red oak trees. The rising heat wins the struggle against the tired body's cry for more sleep. Food is the first thought. Breakfast will be late. You hear a state trooper mutter, "Why don't they open some more of that kennel ration they've been eating?" You can already feel the sun beating on your neck when breakfast comes. It's a donut and a carton of milk. He's the doctor, talks about blistered feet and urges you to take your salt pills.
Steak, folks. Can we get another flash for 500?
He's Robert Greene, one of Martin Luther King's veterans. All of King's group is committed to nonviolence. That is, they have been so far. Greene is a little like a camp director. He tries to keep it light.
Is not fulfilled. I will allow the group to hang me from the first tree you can find. I will guarantee you that by 1 o'clock today, you will have an excellent hot lunch.
9 o'clock. The column straggles onto the road. The day shift of state police has replaced the night shift. None of them like the job. And one of them says to you, all them niggers ought to have they whipped and put to work. Don't you agree? They remember Philadelphia, where Negroes and whites fought. And one of them is saying, and Martin Luther King was talking about how he feared no man. And this white cat was standing over there wiggling his finger and saying, Luther, Luther, you ain't afraid of nobody? Just come over here. A white man tells you, this whole thing just tickles the fool out of me. He laughs, but it sounds wrong. These are the troops. The leaders march at the head of the column. But the leaders aren't there yet. The troops don't know where they are. A Negro girl says, we ought to go up near the front of the line. Back here, all we get are stale rumors. I want to get some first-hand rumors. A white girl puzzles aloud to her companion. The only thing I object to, it isn't solely a black people's movement. But you are aware it is changing. Whites are still welcome, provided their presence doesn't overshadow the Negroes. You ask about this and listen and realize a strange thing. They are almost saying the whites are all right in their place, and as long as they don't get uppity. You reflect on the origins of that rationale. Unnoticed, the clouds, huge, puffy bowls of cotton, have turned gray. It begins raining. A Negro grins sardonically. White rain, he says. It's got to be good. At least it's cooling. A Negro woman says, my feet hurt so much they're crying for their civil rights. And a man laughs and says, we prayed for this rain, Lord, but not too much now. The rain stops. Now you steam. Lunch was promised for 1 o'clock. It finally gets there at 3. A frankfurter, some beans, mashed potatoes. Soon they're a little less hungry, a good deal more tired, and almost entirely quiet.
Well, let me say first that this march is nonviolent. It is a nonviolent expression of our determination to be free. This is the principle of the march, and certainly we intend to keep this march nonviolent.
Mr. Carmichael, are you as committed to the nonviolent approach as Dr. King is?
No, I'm not.
Why aren't you?
Well, I just don't see it as a way of life. I never have. I grew up in the slums of New York, and I learned there that the only way that one survived was to use his fists. I realized the reality of this country, its foreign policy, which is one of the most violent in the world, And I realized that within that context, I couldn't be asked to do that. I also realized that no one in this country is asking the white community in the South to be nonviolent. And that, in a sense, is giving them a free license to go ahead and shoot us at will. And for me, it's always been a tactic and never a way of life.
Could you comment on that, Dr. King?
Yes, well, it's very clear and known, I guess, everywhere that I'm committed to nonviolence, not merely as a tactic, but as a way of life. And I think that the Negro has an opportunity to inject morality in the veins of our civilization, and for this reason I will continue to preach nonviolence. I will continue to believe in it, not only because I think it is morally right, but I think it is practically sound. I think it would be absolutely impractical for the Negro to turn to violence. Many of our opponents would really like this.
What do you mean when you shout black power to these people back here?
I mean that the only way that black people in Mississippi will create an attitude where they will not be shot down like pigs, where they will not be shot down like dogs, is when they get the power of where they constitute a majority in counties to institute justice. They are oppressed because they are black, and their rallying cry must be black power, so that they can use that to ensure justice for themselves. When this march leaves, the black people in Mississippi will be here to face the troopers. When Martin Luther King, Stokely Carmichael, and Floyd McKissick is gone, so are the cameras and the state troopers. And the black people of Mississippi will have to form within their own internal strengths or some institutions ways in which to ensure justice for themselves. And that has to be through political power, since they have no economic stand in this state. And that's what I mean by black power.
I feel, however, that while believing firmly that power is necessary, that it would be difficult for me to use the phrase black power because of the connotative meaning that it has for many people, and the feeling that this may represent a desire to rise from a position of disadvantage to one of advantage, thereby subverting justice. On the other hand, I want to make it clear that I absolutely understand the meaning of the phrase and the need for power in our struggle.
Mr. Carmichael, do you have any good reason to believe that black power would be more just or less corrupt in time than white power is?
No, I'm not concerned about that. I'm concerned about people who are exploited, whose power has been erupted and taken from them violently, and that the need is to get them that power. Now, if they do with that power, as everyone else in the country, then that's it. We're going to try our best to organize that power around different lines that have been organized in this country. That's our job.
Well, isn't it just racism in reverse?
No, it is not. I don't see why power in anybody's hand who should have it, according to this country, is racism. How do you define black power as racism? Would you define that in Sunflower County, where 80% of the population is black, where 20% of the population is white, where the whites have taken that power, Eastern lives in that county.
Well, I think that's racism,
the federal
yeah.
government refused to take it.
I would define that as white racism,
now,
yeah.
would you define it racism if the 80% of those people came together and politically, through the vote, control that county? Is that racism?
If they exploited the whites the same way the Negroes have been exploited in the past, I'd call it racism, yeah.
But does that, just because you call for the need to get that power and to throw those races out, does that mean you're going to automatically be racist?
Doesn't mean you're automatically going to be. What guarantee do you have that you won't, though?
Well, we don't. But what guarantee? Why should people be afraid that we will be? It seems to me they're talking about their own fears. And that's precisely why I intend to keep using that word, because it's for once that white society will have to deal with its own racist feelings, and that we will not have to deal with it. They must ask themselves why they are afraid of the word black and why they're afraid of the phrase black power. And they have to raise those questions, because it's very clear in our minds what we mean by it.
Do you think they're really afraid of it, or just feel that it's not a good thing for the country as a whole?
Well, whatever reasons, I think that it's needed in Mississippi. I think it's needed in Harlem. I think it's needed in Watts, that those black people in those ghettos must have the power to get the representatives to speak to their needs. Now, if that's a bad thing for this country, I think this country's in a bad shape.
Do you think you'll be able to keep it nonviolent, Dr. King?
Yes, I think so. I don't have any doubt in my mind about that. I think this march is going to be nonviolent throughout. Now, I can't say that here and there will not be a sporadic outbreak of violence.
Mr. Carmichael, sometimes when I'm talking about this violence and nonviolence and freedom and black power, I sometimes get the feeling that some Negroes feel that they have the whites frightened, and that the white wants the Negro to remain nonviolent for the white's own safety only. Do you share that view?
Well, I sometimes do. I sometimes feel that they want to know that no matter what happens to black people, no matter what they do to them, that they will remain nonviolent. And they want me to be able to say that, and I cannot. And I will not.
The conflict between the two leaders was obvious, but the cries of black power and freedom by the rival groups of marchers were muted after an accord between King and Carmichael Wednesday night. The following evening, King led the marchers into the town of Canton. Carmichael had gone on ahead to drum up support from the townspeople. Their reunion on the street was a dramatic highlight of the march.